Hello everyone and welcome to NGamers Checkpoint. This is the podcast where we talk about the latest news of Netflix games. You know what? Let me remove that echo. There you go. And today we have some exciting news, but not only that, we also have a nice interview with our good friend Casey, which we'll talk to very soon. But before we do that, let me guys introduce you to the current people as co-hosts as me. I said that really wrongly, but you know what I mean. So first I'd like to introduce NG, our good friend Netflix Gamer. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing good, guys. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing very well. Today is a good day. No migraine, not feeling tired, super, lots of energy. So the perfect day for a podcast. And next up we have Sidlon, who is back on track. Sidlon, I heard that some Hoompa Loompas stole your phone or something last week, and you couldn't make it, right?
It's true. NG somehow knew that it was the Oompa Loompa ninjas that took my phone, and so I couldn't get in last week. But I managed to dodge them today.
Wow,
so it's a good day.
Yeah, that's really good. It's really good. All right, so before we introduce our friend here, I just want to say hi to the chat. We've got Four Scars Gaming saying good evening. We've got Bruce who says hello there. Chat is pretty active. Welcome, everyone. All right, guys, without further ado, let me introduce you guys to Casey Moore. How are you doing, my friend?
Good, thank you very much for inviting me.
Awesome. Yeah, glad you could make it, my friend. And we got some very exciting questions for you today. We're very excited to have you here because you're managing something very special in the Netflix, environment, ecosystem. So, I'm looking forward to talk to you about those. What do we do, Casey? When we start a show, we ask everybody on the panel what they've been playing. And I'm not sure if you're a gamer. I think you are, given what the conversations that we had. But what have you been playing lately?
So on the Netflix front, which I think is probably where you want to start, is I've been addicted to Bloons TD6, which came out last week under the radar. I remember being at high school playing the original on Flash on computers and trying to get around the school's firewall just to load it up. So it's a blast from the past, and exactly the sort of mobile game that you want on the fly. And thank God it's not hampered with horrible microtransactions. So yeah, loving that.
Very nice. And you've been playing some stuff outside of Netflix also, right?
Yeah, I love. I've been playing Spyro on the PlayStation. I'll soon be playing Oxenfree 2, which I'm looking forward to giving that a go. And also, I'm an Overwatch fan, so I play that religiously. I hate it. I still carry on playing it every day. So yeah, love it.
Yeah, every Overwatch fan that I talk to, they just really hate it for some reason. They just I don't know what happened, but yeah, everybody is just like really on that negative aspect of it. What about you, NG? What have you been playing?
Well, I've been playing Bloons TD6 as well. I obviously made videos on that. Short Handle. That's the game I've still been playing. Mostly because if I watch a TV show, my friends now judge me for it because they think it's just an American version of Love Island. But I was like, okay, whatever, I'll play the game then. None of you have to see that until they've just heard me admit it. But there's that, and then obviously I've been playing Gears of War 5 on GeForce Now as well, which I'm surprised how well that game runs on GeForce Now, to be fair.
Very nice. Am I still there? Okay, there we go. Sorry, I was removing my sweater because it was actually really hot here, but very cool. Looks like just by talking about Too Hot to Handle, I got really hot, so there you go. That's done. What about you, Sidlon? What have you been playing?
I have to admit, last couple of days I've been getting back into a game called Necro Barista. As you know, I'm big into Apple Arcade, and Necro Barista is a game that was on arcade for 3 years, and it's disappearing from the library sometime in the next week. It's already out of the App Store, and the app I have will stop working soon. So I had to race through it to finally finish that story. It's a visual novel, and I recommend Necro Barista on other consoles, PC, Switch, if you like dark magic and coffee.
That
or
sounds
visual
like a
novels.
good combination.
There's a cafe for the dead. It's really, really nice in Australia.
Okay, wow. That sounds interesting.
So I recommend Necro Barista, and I finished the main story, but I think there's a couple extra chapters I have to work on tonight that I didn't even know were there.
That'll keep you busy for
But
a while.
thankfully, Netflix games hasn't been out long enough for them to start removing anything. But I kind of dread the point where some of the best Netflix games might come out of the library.
Yeah, we're
We'll
gonna
see how
have
that
like
goes.
that fear of missing out, right? Like we're gonna be trying all these games before they leave, so hopefully it's not in a while.
Because Arcade has been out for just over 3 years, and most of the contracts are for 3 years. Every month has been just kind of the stress of finding out what's going to be taken out of the library this month.
Yeah.
But we've got time till it's a worry for Netflix.
There you go, perfect. And I've been playing Desta, which is a strategy game that I've been really enjoying. And I've actually finished it. It's not a long game, but there's a lot of replay value afterwards that I need to get to. But for now, I'm keeping it on the side again after finishing it once, and maybe later on I'll jump back into it. I've also finished Kentucky Route Zero this weekend. That was a good one. It took me a while to finish, and that's why I didn't start any other game afterwards, because that was kind of a long one. I think it took me 13 hours in total, and for a point-and-click adventure, that's kind of long. And then right now I'm doing a playthrough of High Water, which is another strategy game, but very relaxing. You travel through the water, and it's been really, really fun. All right, so let's go ahead and we have some questions for a good friend Casey here. He's here, but maybe you guys don't even know why he's here. So Casey, first of all, can you introduce yourself for those who don't know you?
Sure. I'm the editor and founder of What's on Netflix. It's a Netflix fan site. I've been running it one way or another for almost 10 years this year. I first registered it while I was at high school still, and then in the last 5 years I've sort of been running it almost full time, but not quite. It's just been growing from strength to strength. We have visitors from all over the world, and really what we do is we sort of track the comings and goings of Netflix. And the news and anything like that, and more recently, tracking some of the games coming, which then led me to you guys, because you do an excellent job yourselves of doing that. So thankfully we've teamed up, and we're sort of cataloging it all by the side, and when I find something I'll tell you, and vice versa, which is awesome.
Pretty flattered by that. Yeah, like it's been a really good connection with you and me and NG. We've been sharing some stuff, and that's how we get this news out, so fast. So, I gotta say thank you to NG and Casey for that also. That's interesting. I was wondering if this was your full-time job or not, but looks like not quite yet. And hopefully, eventually, you'll be able to, do that full-time. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, so I still do some code stuff on the side for other people, and that's basically where I started off from this. Is sort of like I'm a developer slash an SEO guy, and then it kind of made the gel work with the What's on Netflix site, because I'm able to do all the back end stuff on that, and obviously over the years I've developed a bit of a sense for hopefully finding good stories and covering stuff. But so really multiple skills, hopefully, that result in a pretty competitive fan site.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I think that you're a pretty good designer too, because the look and feel of their website is very, very good, and that's a part that I like about the website. So kudos to that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So can you tell us a little bit of background on yourself? So how did you first found out about Netflix up until when you started What's on Netflix?
So Netflix didn't come over here until 2012, so it was a few years after they'd really started streaming. And I always remember the first advert I saw on television for it, which was the one with the beaver, and it was sort of like, "Hello there, you could watch as many shows and movies as you want." And I remember subscribing and thinking, "Blimey, this is awesome!" But I don't, the Netflix UI, which to some extent still has this problem, really doesn't present like a full library of what Netflix has. And it certainly doesn't allow you to track news and developments. And obviously, when I first started, it was mostly licensed stuff. And now we're at the point where the Netflix library is nearly 55% originals versus the licensed titles. So really, I've been tracking the changes, and I just love doing that. And over the years, I've managed to get some stories on upcoming stuff before everyone else, which is always nice. And just really about tracking the evolution of Netflix itself as much as anything.
That's cool. So it's kind of like a passion of yours. So that's what I encourage people to do. Just follow your passion, and it's fun doing things that you like, right? So I'm kind of glad that you're doing that, and then that you're continuing that passion.
100%. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So, you're currently running What's on Netflix, and by the looks of it, it keeps you pretty busy because I see you post all the freaking time. It's crazy. So, can you talk about what the website is about exactly? What do you post on there, and what should we expect from the website?
Yeah, so we've got a growing team now of freelancers and a couple of full-timers, including me. And really what our daily just goes, whatever's trending on Netflix, we'll talk about that. We cover everything, what's new, coming soon, leaving soon, which is just as important nowadays. So yeah, just tracking the general comings and goings. Now, I don't want to say we're the best in the biz, because the amount of stories I miss keeps me up at night and doesn't allow me to sleep. But yeah, we keep growing, and hopefully the team keeps expanding. And really, it's just the case of when we expand the team, it's about finding someone that's really passionate about all things Netflix, and has got something unique and interesting to say.
Yeah, let's hope that you can find like the USA version of Casey, right? And he can do your job while you're sleeping or something. That would be that would be ideal.
That's the dream. That's the dream.
For sure. So actually, my next question was I was gonna ask if it was a solo thing or not. So can you talk a little bit about who's working under you, like to a certain extent that you're allowed to?
Yeah, so it's me and Jacob are full-time on it. We work on it mostly on BST hours, although you'll probably find me up until 2 a.m. sometimes covering stuff, depending on what the news schedule's like. But yeah, it's just that, and then a team of freelancers. So we've got other people in the UK, such as Ethan himself. He contributes a monthly column to us. And then we've also got people in France, Canada, and the US too. So yeah, a bit of everyone from everywhere, which is cool.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, just a little plug from NG there. So NG is one of the journalists, part of What's on Netflix. He covers some.
Yeah. If anyone ever wondered why I changed my Discord name to Netflix Gamer NG Ethan 1, that's what 1 means.
Mm-hmm. There you go. So there he is, the one and only. So keep a lookout for some articles about Netflix games, and you might see his name there on some of these articles. So let me get to these questions. So What's on Netflix? It also covers Netflix games now. Since they've been announcing the games. So let's first ask the most important question. All right, you know what? We already know that, but I was gonna ask, are you a gamer yourself? So yes, you are. But the thing is, Sidlon also have some interesting question for you. So I'm gonna pass along the next questions to him.
And also on the gamer note, I mean, the gamer can mean a lot of different things to different people. Like, how do you feel about the term gamer?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah, I think it's a broad term nowadays, isn't it? I think you've obviously got the hardcore, which is sort of like edging towards the PC gamer and the console gamer, and obviously the mobile, which is very much what Netflix is trying to get into, is much more casual. And an industry as a whole that's evolved quite a lot over the last few years. Like it's a very different model to how consoles and desktop works. But yeah, game is so broad. I think it's almost hard to real pin down because I think it probably one way or another covers most of the globe because everyone plays games one way or another, even if you don't consider yourself like on a, I guess it's a spectrum, so to speak.
Very true. So for you, I know you're generally busy with lots of things, but when you have time to game during the week, what do you usually tend to be playing?
Yeah, it's
Mobile, desktop?
Desktop mainly. I also have a PlayStation for the weekends on in my lounge. But yeah, usually in the evenings it's PC gamers to stress myself out and then go to bed.
Good idea.
Yeah, and mobile games. It's funny. I wouldn't consider myself a mobile games. I haven't over the past few years, particularly with the free to play games. I'm often put off by the insane tedious tedium of them. Because they're sort of designed to suck as much money from you as possible.
Very true.
This has been a practice that sort of made the leap over to consoles and stuff recently. So really, I'm not about wasting my time. So yeah, Netflix games on that front has been a bit of a welcome. I still think they've got a way to go on a lot of fronts on that side of it. But yeah, mainly desktop, but I do certainly play some of the mobile games that have now been introduced.
And so on the What's on Netflix site, you've always tracked Netflix news, and then at some point you started adding in some of the Netflix games news. Was there like a key point that you realized you needed to start adding some more coverage of the game side of things?
Yeah, I think as time goes on, it's going to become more important to Netflix as a whole. I think that the way that they're trying to integrate it all with everything. So the idea that if you're watching a TV show of X and there's a game that you can sort of bleed into, and that there's interconnected stories, I think that's going to become more important. And I think that's obviously a key point with us as a site covering it. Is that all of these things will eventually merge into one another. I think there's a lot of franchises out there where you have to be involved with the games as much as you do with the TV or movie franchise, because it's the lore all stacks up, so to speak. So I think it's going to become more important from a storytelling perspective too.
And like Netflix is really kind of blurring the lines between the games and the TV sometimes with the interactive TV shows. Like they've got the trivia one or the Bandersnatch. They really like to kind of blur that line for people.
Yeah, I think that technology has really come on over the time. I think Bandersnatch is probably the only one that's really pushed it and entered the mainstream. But yeah, the interactive technology is certainly a unique selling point for Netflix for sure. Yeah.
So like going forward, you'll definitely be providing some content about the Netflix games. Like how detailed do you expect to have your coverage on the What's on Netflix site?
I'd love it to be more detailed now. I think there's definitely an issue at the moment with communication, particularly on Netflix side, about what's coming out on it. I think it's getting better, but we still get ghost drops all of a sudden, and it's really hard to, the press releases don't come out in the same manner that TV shows and stuff does. But to be fair, it's a small team and it is growing. So. But we certainly are in the golden age of the mobile side of what Netflix is offering. So I hope our coverage expands over time for sure.
Yeah, we've been hoping for a while that Netflix would just have a Netflix Games Twitter account or something like that, where we could just get the pure gaming news. Because right now it's kind of mixed in along with everything else in their PR ways of getting news out.
Yeah, yeah, so they do a monthly post at the moment, albeit it's usually after they've announced everything and released everything for that month. So it's usually like a blog post to say what's what's actually been out already rather than what's coming soon. But we see it mixed in with events like Tudum. There was two trailers there, so yeah. I think that's just a communication problem, and I think if you follow Netflix at all, especially on the show and movie side, that it's a valid criticism on that side of it. So yeah, Netflix games is not bucking the trend.
For sure. So as people tend to leverage your site and use the news from what's on Netflix, is there a best way that people can kind of help out the site and help your site grow?
Yeah, so I mean, if you find news that we haven't covered, then please send me a tip. I'm Casey@whatsonnetflix.com, or to find me on Twitter, Casey__more. Just tips and coming through would be fantastic. That's probably the best way.
Absolutely. Well, everybody listening, just go to What's on Netflix, and if there's news that you've heard about that they haven't reported, let them know. And on the TV side, like, what have you really been into lately in the Netflix shows?
That's an easy one. I mean, I'm a huge Black Mirror fan, so I'm elated that came back. I binge watched all 5 episodes pretty quickly, and I love it just as ever. So yeah, definitely that one. Easy answer, I'm afraid.
I feel guilty that I haven't watched it yet. I'm planning to binge through all the Black Mirrors eventually, but
it's fantastic. Start a spreadsheet and let me know what your favorite ones are. That's yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, what is Black Mirror? Like, is that that's the interactive show, right?
Not quite. So
Oh.
Black Mirror started off as a Channel 4 series. It's basically an anthology set in sort of like, well, it's set across different time periods, but every episode opens with a new story, usually infused with sort of tech and horror. And yeah, Bandersnatch was their interactive episode. I think that released around Christmas a few years back. But that one really employed, I think, the interactive technology to the best. But most have sort of like a video game aspect to them. I know Striking Vipers had a video game theme running throughout it. But yeah, it's an excellent British show that Netflix saved. Hopefully they can keep getting it back. I think the rights on it are still a bit dodgy. So, but yeah, hopefully it keeps coming back.
That's really interesting. I'll need to check that out.
But it's one show on Netflix that it seems like gets so many Oscar or Emmy nominations for individual episodes every year.
Anthologies seem to do really well on that front. I think it's because the amount of different stories they can tell and cover a lot of ground in very short periods of time. So yeah, I love it. And if you do go in to enjoy it, then Love, Death and Robots is certainly the second recommendation from there. It's almost the same, but it's from an animation. It's all different studios from around the world.
Very cool.
That is definitely going on my list.
Yeah, I can see Sidlon and Casey having like a long conversation because Sidlon is a big fan of like every show is also from Netflix and that. So I love that. I love this conversation. So guys, if you have any questions for Casey, we still have the news to do, but during the show, if you have any questions, we can just ask them over, and there's no issue with that. But Bruce has some questions in general about Netflix. He's saying, I'm not a fan of Amazon Prime games. When is Netflix games coming to PC? And then he's asking, how would Netflix games come to an Android TV? So these questions, we don't really know the answer, unfortunately, Bruce. We think that we're pretty sure it's going to happen at some point, but there's no like specific news about it. So, but keep a lookout, especially on wink wink Netflix Gamer or What's on Netflix if you'd like to see the latest news about that. He's also asking, with the possibility of Netflix games on PC, would The Witcher come day one? That would be kind of cool. I hope that they can make that happen, to be honest. I'm not sure exactly how the contract works, but let's hope that they can do that. I mean, they have a relationship with them already, right? So why not?
Yeah, I think it's very split, though. I think the game and the TV series that are very different things, for sure.
Yeah, we haven't seen like any
from
relation.
my understanding, from my understanding of that, the Witcher TV show is based on the books, while the Witcher game is obviously also based on the books, but it's loosely based on the books. So I think, so from my understanding, in order to actually get the rights to put the Witcher games on Netflix, they'd have to obviously talk to the developer, which is CD Projekt Red. They might as well try and get Cyberpunk was for there because obviously they got Cyberpunk anime. But besides CD Projekt Red, I don't think there's anything they've got to do with the actual owner of the actual Witcher IP. It's more so getting the rights with CD Projekt Red to obviously help bring those games over.
Yeah, for sure, because you don't see any relation with the games and the shows that are on there, so that makes a lot of sense to me, for sure.
But the one thing we definitely do know that Netflix is working on PC games, especially through the Studio Blue in LA. They're working on something AAA PC games that they're very quiet and secretive about. But hopefully we'll get some more news this year soon.
Yeah, we're really hoping so. Like, at least we're getting some really consistent news on a weekly basis now, so that's really good. So speaking of that, we actually have some news for you guys today, so let's go and jump into that. And let me share my screen here. Oh, what's that? What's on Netflix? Have some news for us? Well, that's amazing. So looks like Sonic Prime Dash has been announced for coming on Netflix game in July 2023, alongside with Sonic Prime Season 2. So it looks like it's a, how can you say that? It's releasing on the same day as the Season 2 of Sonic Prime. Very exciting. I've been trying the game and it's been pretty fun. So, Casey, have you ever tried any of the Sonic games in general? Or, like, are you a fan of Sonic?
I was never really into Sega, to be honest. I know that what this sort of game is sort of like the Temple Run sort of format or the Mario Run format. But I really love the way that they're releasing this. I'm not a particular fan of the fact that that it's basically a reskin and not nothing particularly new. But I do like the release schedule of this. I think it makes a hell of a lot of sense, particularly given the crossover with the skins. But yeah, I'd be interested to see what they change a bit this game. I know that the people have complained about the microtransactions in the original, so how this plays without it will be really cool to see.
Yeah, exactly. And NG, I know that when this was announced, to like put some news on YouTube right away. So I'm assuming you're pretty excited about it, right?
Yeah, because this might. Okay, I need to obviously disclose this because legal reasons, but I do actually have shares in Sega. So when I heard this news, I was like, "Oh, sweet, you got Sonic." Also, I made a video about 3-4 months ago talking about Sonic games coming to Netflix games and why I thought that was going to be a likely thing in the future due to Netflix obviously making Sonic Prime, and obviously now we at least have one Sonic game on the service. It's not like okay. We're now aware that we're getting at least one Sonic game, so everybody gets one, as they say.
Yeah, exactly. And what about you, Sidlon? What was your first thoughts when you first heard about it?
I'm definitely excited. I mean, I've been a Sonic fan since I first got my Genesis back in the 90s, and then Dreamcast. Like, the Sonic Adventure was amazing. And of the casual Temple Run type of games, I think Sonic Dash does a nice job of bringing in the visuals of the Dreamcast age games, where you had a lot more flexibility to explore. But Sonic Dash has always been a pretty impressive what kind of visuals they can fit into a game like that. So I'll definitely be picking this up again, because I played another version through Apple Arcade. It was a Plus game there, without any extra skins. So,
very nice. So I can see that me, you, and NG are big Sega fan. So I guess we're gonna have to bash Casey here, because he's the only Sega hater here. So we're gonna have to do something about that.
I've been Sony since day one, or since I was a week hipper.
The Sony pony. No, just kidding. I'm actually really into Sony also. So.
I would fight you guys over this, but I'm at the point where I'm like, I buy most of my games on Steam now anyway, so I don't really care.
Here you go. So next up, we've got Night School Studio. So this week, they've been very intriguing. They've been teasing something. It does, they're coming out with Oxenfree 2 next month. But it doesn't mean that it has anything to do with Oxenfree, because it's not on the Oxenfree channel. And we're all we're seeing here are letter reveals and then a video, and the video has some Morse code saying something like I'm not exactly sure, I can't remember, but I think it says look away actually in the Morse code. So Casey, you're a big guy on news. What would you pick out of that? Do you think it has anything to do with Oxenfree, or do you think it has to do with something else?
I think it's probably Oxenfree. I think this is what they call ARGs, which is like augmented reality games, where it's sort of, Cloverfield was a really good example of this. In the lead up to that film, there was a ton of websites that got launched, all with hidden messages like this. So yeah, I would love to dig into this, but having dug into so many other things, Lupin was a really good example where they hid the release date within the Netflix user interface, and it took me way too long to figure that out. I don't know if I have the bandwidth to go into this right now.
Can imagine. Maybe you can ask one of your journalists to do that for you.
It would be cool, but I do think it's Oxenfree related. But whatever it is, it's really cool. I think it's trying to get if they can build it up and get the attention of a big YouTuber. I think that's probably the goal here. Perhaps that would be my sort of instinct.
That's a good idea. So, Sidlon, what do you think? Do you think that we'll see something else out of this?
I mean, I think we'll probably see more videos hinting at what they're getting at, but based on like 25 seconds into the video, where they show a triangle across the screen, I'm pretty sure it's Oxenfree.
Yeah, look at that. Yeah. That's true.
Yeah, that is a key thing from Oxenfree 1, where you get these triangle. I don't know what they actually are. Some kind of
they're like the portal
window to the other side.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But I think they're trying to let people know that Oxenfree 2 is a different kind of game from the original. Like, they've dropped some little hints. Like, thematically, they're going to give you more freedom to act within the world. I'm a huge fan of Oxenfree 1. And I'll watch whatever teasers they want, but I'll definitely be playing it day one when it launches.
Yeah, nice. And Angie, what do you take out of this?
See, obviously, my mind obviously goes straight to Oxenfree, because Oxenfree 2 is coming out, and it makes just too much sense to be a marketing tool for Oxenfree 2. But I will say to people, like, if that, don't have that just be your only submission, because Night School Studios has made other games as well, like After Party and Road to Nowhere, I believe it's called, which is on Apple Arcade currently. So whilst it's most likely related to Oxenfree and Oxenfree 2, I would say keep an open mind, because they do have other games this could have some sort of relation to.
Yeah, no, I was honestly hoping that it would be a teaser about Next Stop Nowhere, because Apple just announced yesterday that Next Stop Nowhere is leaving arcade next month, because it's hitting its 3-year contract point. So I think some more time, hopefully before the end of the year, we'll probably see Next Stop Nowhere make the jump, since it was made by Night School Studio, now a part of Netflix.
When are we getting Cozy Grove? That's the only one I care about. That's the only one I want to play. I want to play Cozy Grove. When are we getting Cozy Grove?
Yeah. Oh, man.
Cozy Grove will be a bit longer till it hits its 3-year point, but any contract, I think, usually either side can pay to get out early, so it's possible Netflix
when it gets
might do that.
When it gets announced, like, one of you guys to ring me screaming on the phone, "Hey, man! Cozy Grove!"
Especially they'll want to get Cozy Grove brought to Netflix games, hopefully, like, at least a few months before Cozy Grove 2 launches. Because that's
exactly,
you want to give people time to play through it before Cozy Grove 2. And Cozy Grove 1, I'll say, because of the way it's structured, it's a casual game. It's a cozy game where you're do the kinds of casual, light things you do in cozy games, but they limit how much you can do in a given day in Cozy Grove 1. So it actually took me like 4 months of playing every day to get through the story. So I think they need to leave at least 4 months between when they bring Cozy Grove 1 to Netflix and then before they launch the sequel.
Yeah, I can see
But we'll
that
see how it goes.
for sure. And I can't imagine them not bringing that game here after it's off the Apple Arcade, because it's such an opportunity. They own the game, right? So why not? So it's gonna happen for sure. So, but it's just a matter of time.
And if you want to get a head start, I think Cozy Grove is on consoles like Switch.
Yeah,
probably Steam.
I was actually playing it yesterday on my PC. It's really cozy. Cozy Grove. It's really fun.
I own it on my Steam Deck, but I own all Cozy Grove, not Cozy Grove, all the Spry Fox games on Steam on my Steam Deck. I literally have a folder on my Steam collections for games based on games Netflix own. I have it for like 6 different companies, but with Cozy Grove, I just want to have it on my phone, in my pocket. I just get a notification every day. Oh, you need to come on and play Cozy Grove. Oh yeah, I'll play that for about 20 minutes, whatever it is, and then go on my day.
There you go. Yeah, it's a game that you play like in short sessions, so it's definitely that type of game. So Sidlon, there's actually a question for you in the chat. Bruce is asking, what is the minimum iOS requirements to Netflix games? Do you know that?
I honestly don't, but I suspect any phone from the last 4 or 5 years, I'd be surprised if you couldn't play, and it might vary depending on the game.
It does vary depending on the game.
Like Oxenfree 2 might need a newer phone potentially than Mahjong Solitaire for sure. But
if I give you an argument for Android, for example, I used to film a lot of my videos on an Android Samsung phone from 2019. That phone cannot play certain games on Netflix games. There's been Raj and Ancient Epic, High Water, or Moonlighter. None of those games are available to play on Netflix games via that phone for some reason. But all the other games are available to play. So, and I would have thought games like Dust and Neon wouldn't have been able to run on it, but like these more like basic games would have. But I don't understand why those 3 games are locked out, but this one's not. So,
and I just had a quick snout. Most require iOS 15, and one I just spotted here, Layers Horizon, requires an A12 chip. So. Yeah, I think you're right. So the more intense games require probably newer hardware.
So that makes sense, because Layers Horizon definitely will benefit from a good graphics chip, because it is such a beautiful environment. I always feel the pull to go flying down that mountain again.
Yeah, and if you guys are wondering if it's supported or not, you can go on the Netflix support page, and they have all games on there, and you can see the minimum requirements if you ever need to. But yeah, let's keep going here. For the next news, I'd like to talk about Wings Elevated 2023. So we've heard this week on June 21, so it's been actually a full week. But Cohort revealed for the Wings Elevated 2023 game accelerator sponsored by Netflix. So it looks like there's another game accelerated sponsor here. We've heard about one a week or 2 ago, but this is another one. So they've sponsored a total of 10 studios. And just to give a brief explanation again, a accelerator is basically funding on a project for them to help them out getting out there, like publicize their stuff and try to get their game going. And if I'm not mistaken, Wings Elevate encourage basically a variety of people, right? Like a LGBTQ community and all of this cool stuff. So it looks like they've got a total of 10 studios right now. We've got Nico Games, Plus Plus, Skyreach Studio, Glow Frog Games, Mellow Minx, Studio Tilia, Teen Gramps, Queen's Guard, Spider Lily Studio, and Tiny Furry Games. So for sure, I followed them all on Twitter, and looking forward to see what they will bring here. But so what's your thought on that, Casey? Do you think that we might receive some of these games maybe on Netflix games at some point?
So usually, they've got equivalents of this on the TV and movie side. So what usually happens is that they try and get as you said, smaller developers or documentary directors or the equivalent for that, to try and get them to the point where they're ready to pitch the show or movie or game in this case, to go, onto a platform. So I think it makes sense for Netflix to be involved at this early stage. It gets their name around the industry. It certainly gets them in the talent pool. We know that they're on a massive hiring spree at the moment, so this makes them look talent friendly. We sort of saw the same thing with Netflix Animation, a good 4 or 5 years ago, where they were in massive hiring spree mode, and they were the greenlighting all sorts of projects, and that certainly seems like the same what they're doing with games here.
Very nice. What about you, NG? Are you excited about this? Do you think we'll get some games out of it?
Well, obviously, you and Sidlon both know my background, where I come from. Obviously, what I identify as and whatnot. And when it comes to this sort of stuff, it's nice to obviously see Netflix is trying to promote this sort of stuff and these values and this understanding of the stuff to people. It's also nice that Netflix is actually doing this, because this isn't actually new. This was actually announced back in March. I actually have a video on my channel covering it back in March. I read it in an article for What's on Netflix back in March. It's just announced in the studios now. But what's also kind of nice about this, obviously, is giving people one opportunity. And in my opinion, I reckon this could also be sort of Netflix sort of basically pumping up some developers to later try and acquire them, because they're sort of going hey, here's some money, make a game for us. If the game does really well, Netflix will go, hey, okay, how much is it to buy your company?
Yeah.
Because fun fact, that's what Microsoft and Sony do a lot all the time. Nintendo does it as well, where they'll be buddy with a studio, fund their game, fund their project, and then they may buy the studio outright within a few years.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure Netflix will have their eyes on them, and there'll be Predator, right? If it does well, they'll be the first one to ask to join them. You can bet your monkey. I don't want to say that name, but yeah.
I can see Netflix just be like, join me or die.
Yeah, there you go.
And
or remove your funding.
This dude's just like, yeah, well, I got nothing to lose. Might as well.
Yeah, exactly. Sidlon, what's your take on this, Sidlon?
Yeah, I mean, it looks like these 10 finalist teams essentially will get $10,000 to get themselves to the pitch stage, building up enough of a game to show off to investors. So I really hope they show us later in the year, or whenever they're done, what each of those 10 teams have done. It'll be good to see a variety of voices contributing to the gaming space, and hopefully some of their pitches will be will get a nice hefty offer from Netflix to bring them into their gaming family.
Yeah, I tried to do a Wings Elevated search here on Twitter, but that really didn't work. But it's exciting. Good luck to everyone who's there. They all have amazing projects. I've looked them all up, and looking forward to see what comes out of it. These are, definitely looking and see. They really look interesting. Next in the news, we've got Boss Fight Entertainment. This is a company owned by Netflix Games, and it looks like they're celebrating their 10th birthday this week. So congratulations to Boss Fight Entertainment. They recently released Dungeon Boss Respawn on Netflix Games, and I think that it's pretty exciting for them. They've been looking for new people. I think they've been looking for a market manager or something like that. I think it's on Netflix, but it's very promising. Casey, are you aware of Boss Fight and what they've been doing?
Yeah, sure. So they seem like one of the smaller pickups they've made. I'm hoping that what they've got in the pipeline was more to do with their acquisition rather than what's come beforehand. But yeah, it's 10 years is a long time to be doing anything. You don't have to ask me. So yeah, look, I haven't personally played Dungeon Boss, so I can't speak to that, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I can understand because it's very mobile intensive, right? I have all the mobiles aspect of it, and I know that this is not the type of game you're looking for. So I definitely understand that. And it's interesting that you say that they probably acquired them for what they can do in the future, and it definitely feels like that. I'm wondering what they'll bring in the future. I'm sure that they pitch in some ideas for Netflix, And I'm sure that they didn't just hire them for Dungeon Boss Response, so it's gonna be cool to see what else they have. Sidlon, 10 years, yay!
Yep.
What's your thought on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, like when we heard that they were going to be, they bought Boss Fight, and then they're going to be publishing Dungeon Boss Respawn. Like, we didn't know what that would be. We thought maybe they're going to it would essentially be a sequel with lots of added content. But it's looking like it's essentially Dungeon Boss, just remade without IAP. So, and the fact that they're hiring so many people, they've got lots of job listings. I definitely think they're building to probably more than one new game project, and maybe the party game is going to be big enough in scale to justify all the new job listings. We'll see, but I wouldn't be surprised if they start hinting at another project or two as one of the Netflix internal studios that they're really trying to build up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's promising. That's another one we'll have to keep a close eye on. NG, so with this acquisition and the 10 years anniversary, what do you think they can bring to Netflix games?
See, I reckon, and this is just me personally, I reckon that they should do something to celebrate 10 years and the fact that they're now a Netflix game studio. Like, I feel like they should roll something like, I don't know, add 11 from Stranger Things in the game or something. That seems to be a very favourite thing of what Netflix likes to do with game characters is either Demogorgon or 11's added into a game like what's it called? I think it's called Dead by Daylight. Has had Demogorgon DLC at one point, but to me, I feel like they could do that, and then they could also announce obviously some new game, maybe a spin-off of Dungeon Boss, like an origin story of one of the characters, or maybe I don't know, maybe a Dungeon Boss TV show. There's quite a lot of stuff you could do because obviously you've got all these different characters. You could obviously give them all their own independent stories and backgrounds. So they could do something, say, TV-wise or game-wise as a spin-off, or they could just focus on a brand new IP, or maybe a sequel, or just maybe make a game based on a pre-established IP within Netflix. You never know.
For sure. NG, I really like you because when you talk, you say so many things that I want to say things about, because you just bring like 10 things at once, and it's crazy. So you talked about Dead by Daylight. They had a Stranger Things DLC, which was pretty cool, but unfortunately they lost the license to it, and you can't purchase it anymore. But if you purchased it in the past, you still get access to the characters. It's just a little something I wanted to say to people who is interested about Dead by Daylight. And then you mentioned that they could bring some stuff from Stranger Things in the game. That'd be pretty cool. And now that made me wonder, will Oxenfree 2 have special Easter egg of Netflix stuff, because they acquired them right during their development of the game? So it just made me wonder when you said that. So hopefully that can happen.
Seems like anything's possible when you've got two internal studios working on projects. Like, it would make sense to insert some little Easter eggs, at least within the fully owned Netflix game.
Yeah, there you go. So Bruce is asking, are there any of the outright games on Netflix games? I really want to play Bratz. Ah, yes, Bruce's favorite game. So, Bruce, there's no word about outright games on Netflix, but I think it would be a great acquisition because outright games does really solid kids games. And I've seen on Apple Arcade, they have games with My Little Pony and things like that, and I think it'd be a good way to match them up, with good quality kids games. So I would love them to see that, to do that.
Yeah, see, I feel with what you just said about outright games would be a good deal. But even if you don't bring over the library stuff that they've already made, just the expertise of their folks on making child-focused games would be great for stuff like Ridley Jones, Storybots, Kid Cosmic, these more child-friendly shows on Netflix that could easily benefit from having a game, whether it be an educational game, an entertainment title, or a actual full-on, a video game. Outright games would be a good get, no matter how you look at it, because everyone involved obviously has experience making games for children. So shows that are already aimed at children by Netflix would have a perfect benefit, obviously being adapted to games for Netflix.
Mm-hmm. It would be such a good contract, like you said, because Outright Games has access to a lot of studios, a lot of development studios, And if they would acquire a contract with all of these Netflix games, kids show acquisition that they own, they could do so much stuff with them. So yeah, I just, it's very exciting. Outright Games is like a company that I like to talk about, but it's true. I really enjoy that. Bruce,
and I do think like it would be smart of Netflix to start adding some games aimed at children. That is something that really paid off for Apple Arcade over the years, was adding things like the Crayola game that just has monthly content for kids. In the last few months, they've added like a coloring app. There's been lots of things that have been really targeting children, which it brings in subscribers because lots of parents want their kids to be able to play games on their phone and not worry that they're going to accidentally buy $10,000 worth of Smurf berries. Like Apple Arcade is a good, safe thing to give your kid and say, you can download anything from that because I know you're not going to accidentally spend a lot of money, which kids can do. So I think something like Outright Games would be a really smart purchase if Netflix could use that to provide something for the young children that'll give parents an easy tool to
you're right.
stress-free gaming.
And it's leveraging IP too, which is going to be really important. So, the idea that, you're also on iOS and Google Play, which, are to some extent some of the biggest search engines in the world. The idea that could then pull new people into a Netflix subscription if they then have to, subscribe to then play a game that's related to SpongeBob. And, everyone knows SpongeBob, even though the series isn't streaming on Netflix in most places. So I think it's about finding a good balance between creative hits and then, IP that everyone's heard of as well.
Very true. And, when they announced the family category on Stadia, it had such a positive reaction. And all of what you guys said about, the kids didn't have to pay for stuff. And it was just really good. I always heard some really good feedback whenever people were talking about the family section of Stadia. So definitely, I hope that Netflix go on that. I know that they're building it up slowly, right? So hopefully that's something in their plan to bring family games, because it's a really important aspect of a game library for sure. So Bruce actually has another questions for us, and I'm gonna go one by one with you guys, just because I'm kind of curious about that too. He's asking, when was the first time you guys heard the rumor of Netflix games? So we'll start with Casey. When did you first heard about that?
Oh man, it's the real rumors started coming probably about a year before it launched. I think if you think back to the time, Netflix was in a bit of a state when it came to subscriber numbers. I think they just had their first ever loss in that department, and really it was about anything that came, was coming down the track to sort of save them from losing subscribers, and certainly gaming was one of those techniques, as well as the ad tier. And then when it kind of came in November 21, it was very small, and then it's sort of grown over time. But yeah, that probably about a year before November. So November 2020 was when we first really started hearing rumors of it coming about.
Oh, like a date and everything. I love that. And you would probably be the first person out of all of us to hear about it because of you've been looking into all these news as quick as possible, so it would make a lot of sense. What about you, NG? When did you first hear about it?
Well, my one's kind of a little bit similar, but basically I knew Netflix games existed back in 2021 because me and my mate were laughing about like how it's never going to compete with Game Pass, whatever. But I didn't actually really get into it until like 2022. I thought, you know what, I actually want to talk about this sort of stuff. I actually want to make content around this sort of stuff because I do think it's quite interesting. And I always had this thing because obviously I've always been I've already written for a site called What's on DisneyPlus.com. So I've always sort of been like in between Disney and Netflix when it comes to where I watch my content and whatnot. But basically how it was I thought this is a huge advantage for Netflix. They can make any IP that they own into a game. They can obviously build that brand recognition across multiple platforms. So then I think it's like November 2022, I took a YouTube channel that I just created in September. I hadn't read anything on yet because my mate backed out of what we was going to do together. And then yeah, I basically just started making videos on it, and then obviously I've met you guys from it, and yeah, and funnily enough as well, like one big thing that kept making me want to make talk about Netflix games was, I think it was like January and February. I actually messaged Casey asking like, would he want someone to write like posts for him about Netflix games, and he's like, just find out. Let's wait for some more news to come out first and whatnot. And then in March, he messaged me. He's like, "Hey, buddy, you interested in the job?"
Very nice. That's how it all started. Very nice. And now in the future, we'll only see you getting even more popular. So I love that. What about you, Sidlon? When was the first time you heard about this?
Well, I didn't hear about the service, anything, until it actually launched. But I was thinking about it going back to 2017 when Netflix funded Stranger Things, the game, which I've always been fascinated with the idea of using freely available games you just give out as a way of doing publicity. Because like the ad budget for Stranger Things it did divert money into making a really great mobile game, Stranger Things, the game, which now you can play as Stranger Things 1984 when it was one of the launch titles for Netflix games. So they gave you like a really nice action adventure NES, SNES style game, which like was really true to the Stranger Things content, and it was one of my favorite mobile games of 2017, and I loved that it was free, no ads, nothing, no IAP, nothing to buy. You just downloaded it, played it, enjoyed it, and I like when things do that. It's pretty rare when someone will just put out a really high quality game like Chex Quest back in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. And I'm gonna be quick here. When I heard about it was on with Stadia, we really look into cloud gaming news, and someone just popped up with Netflix games could come in the cloud. So all of the cloud gaming community start talking about that, and we were really into it, and we were looking forward to see what they bring. So we're still waiting, but hopefully we'll hear about Netflix Cloud sometime soon. So guys, this is pretty much all the time we had. I know that there's a lot of questions in the chat, and I do apologize, but we can answer them during the next podcast if you guys would like to get them there. So just write them up in a notebook, and we'll get them next time. Before we end, though, I just want to share one last news here. There's actually new jobs listing inside Netflix, and they're talking about they're looking for people to work on a new social party video game with some hilarious aspects. So it looks like it's going to be like a really funny game, but with with social party aspects. So I don't know if it's going to be something like You Don't Know Jack or Jackbox Party, all of these type of games, but it's very intriguing, and hopefully we'll hear about it sometime soon. But guys,
let me be honest,
yeah,
they need to make this a Stranger Things version of Mario Party. That would work.
It has to be funny though, so I don't know. I don't know if that's gonna work. Yeah.
Well, just have 11 just say random stuff to Mike that she doesn't understand. Problem solved.
Yeah, there's some pretty funny dialogue once in a while in Stranger Things, so you never know. They could bring that in for sure. All right, guys. So before we end, I just want to go on a roundtable and see where you can find anybody. So we'll start with Casey. Where can we find you, Casey?
Yeah, so whatsonnetflix.com is probably the best way, and then I've got my all my socials on there. But I'm pretty active on Twitter. I'll try and be more active on Discord. The amount of Discords I'm in is becoming quite troublesome, so I struggle going through all of them. But yeah, I'll try and be active here too.
Awesome, that's good. So what's on Netflix, guys? Check it out. And what about you, Sidlon? Where can people find you?
Probably the best is to drop by the r/Netflix Gamers subreddit and their Discord. And any questions people had, come throw them in the Discord and everybody can answer.
Perfect. There you go. And NG, tell us where they can find you, and also tell us, the good stuff that we usually tell at the end. You're really good at that, so I'll let you lead on to that.
Basically, guys, you can find me on YouTube, Netflix Gamer. Obviously, there's quite a few channels name, but obviously, if you look at the logo, I've got red and blue text, very basic. You'll be able to find me. I put up videos pretty much whenever I can and whenever I want. I have missed some of the news in this videos in this stream, so I will be putting up short tomorrow. My time was nearly midnight my time, so I'll be putting up those tomorrow. Likewise, subscribe to NGamers, trying to help him push past 700 subscribers, he's also trying to get more subs to make sure you binge watch all of his hours of content, make sure you just get his videos and you're just like, watch like 10 hours of his content a day, or if you're feeling nice, give us all 24 hours of your day, please. Likewise, if you are trying to make it into YouTube and get into YouTube and you think Netflix Games is a good way to start, please go ahead and please make content on Netflix Games. Like I've said in previous episodes, we want to do community spotlights on this show. So hopefully you guys can if you want to make videos on the games, or like maybe do like little reviews of something, you make the content, you share it, and then just like message with us on Discord, and then we'll probably bring it up in an episode or two in the future. Also, make sure you obviously subscribe, share, like, comment, all that stuff. And most of all, remember, be kind, enjoy yourself, and don't get into concourse.
There you go. We're only missing the peace, famous last word from NG when he ends his video. So
Peace.
yeah. All right, guys. So thanks again for coming in. Thank you, Casey, for joining in for the interview. It was really fun knowing more about you, and hopefully we get to talk to each other a lot more in for some inside scoop on some stuff in Netflix game. All right, guys. Thank you so much, and have yourself a wonderful rest of your Wednesday. Bye, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.